We will go on to the next panel. This is a panel on usage of silver in the industrial sector. May I invite Mr. Matt Watson, representative of the Silver Institute, and he represents Precious Metals Commodity Management. Mr. Mahesh Doshi, National President, Indian Drug Manufacturers Association and CEO, Dymac Pharma. Mr. Arul Shanmugasundaram, Chief Innovation and Business Collaborator, Tata Power. Mr. Sailesh Choksi, Director Choksi Hiraeus. Professor Anand Khanna, Professor IIT Bombay. And Mr. Ashish Choksi, Executive Vice President, Hindustan Platinum Private Limited. We will finish this session and then we will get back to Mr. Prithviraj Kothari. This session would talk about the opportunities in silver industrial applications with focus on policy, economy and technical know-how on solar photovoltaic, pharma, electric and electronic segment. Initially, to begin with, may I request Mr. Matt Watson, who is a consultant for the Silver Institute, to address on two things. One is that his company has come out with a report on 5G and incremental demand for silver. On behalf of Silver Institute, he can share some highlights on that. And secondly, I would like him to talk about electric vehicles and what is the opportunity that it presents for silver. Over to you, Mr. Matt.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Please. Okay. So good morning from sunny California, where right now it's 4-something in the morning. Just real quickly, I wanted to touch on some of the primary silver demand segments. Right now, industrial demand is approaching 60% on silver. This is up from below 50% over the past decade. So good steady climb in industrial demand. By 2025, I estimate that it's going to be greater than 70%. So industrial demand is really the key to the future for silver. There's really 5 main areas of industrial demand focus that are driving this growth. One, of course, is semiconductor and electronics in general. I think the key there is to understand the silver products that are used in that material supply chain. It's all about silver conductive joining technologies, ECA or electroconductive adhesives, die attach materials, pastes, solder materials, bonding wire are all part of that electronics world. So understanding those products is key. The 5G deployment, I think, is going to be a huge silver. I think of it as a force multiplier. Now, people think 5G, one day we're just going to flip a switch and everybody will have 5G capability. Not true. This is going to be a 2-decade-long, slow and steady climb in 5G deployments. And with that slow rise will be incremental silver demand each step of the way. One of the key areas is it's just going to grow electronics in general. And it's going to truly enable, and Mike mentioned it earlier, the Internet of Things. Where there's going to be an explosion in the number of connected devices. Everything from your washer and dryer, your refrigerator, your automobile, agricultural, transportation, logistics, where more and more devices are connecting different industries and really opening up the demand for silver further. Automotive electronics, it's already a $1.1 trillion market as compared to semiconductor, a measly $430 billion market. So automotive electronics is 3 times larger than semiconductor. Today, about 40% of the cost of a vehicle in Europe and Japan and the US is electronics. By 2030, that statistics is going to be over half of the vehicle cost is going to be electronics. And it comes in 5 major areas: infotainment systems, safety systems and sensors. Your auto body has more electronics and sensors. The powertrain control systems and the chassis and engine control systems all again driving incremental use of silver. The fourth main area is automotive and trucking electrification. When you think about electric vehicles, there's stages that are coming, of course, hybrid gas electric vehicles being the first, plug-in electric vehicles being the next level, full range BEVs, battery operated vehicles like a Tesla, leading ultimately to a fuel cell electric vehicle. And again, each level of those electrifications brings more general electronics and more silver. So more electronic devices with each wave. And then finally, the solar PV, obviously an undeniable marketplace that's going to continue to grow. In 2019, we saw 9% of the global silver supply go to solar PV. It was a record year last year. Now, this year is a bit of a down year with the COVID. Some projects have been deferred and production was halted in some regions. But the outlook for next year and through 2025 is phenomenal. We're going to see a steady growth. And so with that, my best recommendations from a legislative perspective to the country of industry is, again, in the electronics arena, understand the products. And I heard earlier, Dustin, the zinc mentioned flakes and powders. Understanding the core products that go into those materials is certainly key. But I also want to stress nanomaterials as well. And when we talk about flakes, powders, grains, or nanomaterials, you don't often think of it, but really the key to those materials is actually the refining processes. Refining is the backbone to the precious metals world. You have to develop the technologies and the skills in refining. And simply put, you have to recycle. We don't want to be throwing e-waste into landfills. You have to develop a recycle industry. So legislative efforts there, very important. Be very targeted. Okay. So be very targeted in your e-waste targeting. Focus on mobile phones, data center waste, IC and logic devices, and printed circuit boards. Those all have the highest content of precious metals. So be very targeted. I just wanted to make brief mention of another recycle segment that I think is so important, and that's lithium batteries. Obviously, as part of the solar PV growth, there's lots of discussion about India using lithium batteries as a storage medium. It's very important for India to develop a lithium battery recycle capability as well. Also, I would ask India to be cognizant of some of the responsible mining aspects in the lithium battery material set. Frankly, there's a huge amount of irresponsible mining practices going on. In particular for nickel, in your neighboring Indonesia and Papua New Guinea, there's a lot of press lately about mine tailing dumping directly into the oceans, impacting our reefs. I think it's something that's going to catch a lot of negative press over the next few years, but we just can't be dumping our mine tailings, these toxic mine tailings, directly into the ocean. And so influencing the international community on that regard, I think, is hugely important. And I also want to warn India, be careful on becoming a dumping ground for either e-waste or for lithium batteries. I know you're talking about extending the life of lithium batteries as a storage medium, but one of the faults in that plan is you're going to end up holding the bag at the end. And so again, you're going to need to have a recycle capability to recover those metals. And then finally, solar PV, again, undeniable growth. Developing a recycle capability there is very important. And so legislatively, one of the suggestions I would make is, first of all, be cognizant of the cost of recycle. So a typical 60 cell crystalline silicon solar panel in the USA costs $12 to $14 to recycle. Unfortunately, you only get about $3 worth of metals out of that process in aluminum, copper, and silver recovery. So there's about a $10 loss in that equation per panel. Perhaps India could consider putting a disposal fee up front on the cost of solar panels as they get deployed nationally to help in financing the ultimate recycle, because there are millions of metric tons of this material coming our way, as these solar panels are now approaching 25 years at the end of their useful life. And again, I think refining and developing those skill sets is key to developing the flakes, the powders, and the nanomaterials that you're going to need to compete in these electronic sectors. So with that, I'll pass it on to the next panelist. Thank you.
We can't hear you.
Oh, extremely sorry for that. Incredible. Like, you are bang on. Thank you very much, Mr. Matt, for giving a global perspective and also making it very clear where India should focus. Thank you so much. I would just digress a bit and request Mr. Chirag Seth to join in because Matt mentioned a very important point about be selective and choosy in allowing e-waste. And Chirag also mentioned that one separately. Over to you, Chirag, for that quick comment before we move on to the panelist. Chirag Seth from Metals Focus, can you unmute?
Yeah, can you hear me, guys? Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you
Make
very
your
much.
quick comment, then we are back. Yeah.
Yeah, so as Matt rightly pointed out, we've got, we are one of the largest, I think, importers of e-waste in the world, and most of this e-waste is largely in the unorganized segment. And I think, there is policy initiatives which is very much required to bring this e-waste into formal, category. And also the fact that, we need to take some lessons out of PGMs, how PGMs industrial refining has actually developed over the years in India. So that's my very simple submission is where government needs to take certain initiatives to bring e-waste into the formalized segment. Right now, everything is going into the informal, category mostly.
Thank you so much, Chirag. It was because I thought you to bring your perspective as well, because you have been an advocate of formalizing the e-waste market. Thank you. We move over quickly to Mr. Mahet Doshi, National President, Indian Drug Manufacturers Association, and also CEO of Dymac Pharma. He's from pharmaceutical industry representing the pharma manufacturers. So we would like to understand the type of silver products that are used in pharma industry. What are the main use cases in pharma? Globally, we understand it is not such a big segment, but we understand silver salts, silver nitrate, and all are being extensively used. How much of this is imported, and does it make any economic sense to make some of these silver products or silver compound within India? Or thinking further, can India become a regional or a global supplier at some stage for some of the laboratory chemicals such as silver nitrate? Over to you, Mr. Mahesh Doshi.
Good afternoon, good evening. Srivastava, thank you very much to become the part of this webinar. I'm supporting body. My association is a supporting body. IDMA is a 59 years old body and having a more than 1,000 members. So, and very well recognized by the government of India for the policy making. Now, coming to the answer of your question, your single question is covering 2 to 3 parts. So I'm going one after one quickly. Silver is a well-documented antimicrobial that has been shown to kill bacteria, fungi, and certain viruses. Silver is added to some bandages for its antimicrobial effect. The medical use of a silver include its use in wound dressing, cream, and as an antibiotic coating on medical devices. Silver sulfadizine is the extensively used in a pharmaceutical industry in the form of an antiseptic ointment for major burn injury. Practically all over the medical field is using this drug. Unlike other metals such as lead and mercury, silver is not non-toxic to human and is not known to cause cancer, reproductive or a neurological damage or other chronic adverse effect. Silver as a metal and a non-essential element is much safer to a human body than other heavy metal like lead and mercury. Due to the medicinal property of a silver nitrate, as a natural compound, it is used as an anti-infective agent, as a topical and a scab to help stop bleeding from minor skin wound. Silver as a colloidal silver in a liquid form was used widely in a hospital as an antibacterial for almost more than 1,200 years prior to the introduction of the antibiotics. Various studies suggest that colloidal silver is effective in killing and preventing bacteria growth, including bacteria that are antibiotic resistant and also preventing a virus fermenting a human cells. Colloidal silver is also known to have various anti-inflammatory property which can soothe eye infection like conjunctivitis, stimulate skin and tissue healing, and reduce the inflammation. How much silver product is imported? While the import of a silver remain restricted and allowed only through a nominated agency as notified by RBI and DGFT, the government recently eased the norms and exempted import of a silver under advance authorization and supply of a silver directly by a foreign buyer to an exporter against an export order. Since in India there are no huge native silver deposit, silver continue to be largely imported. India imported 5,598 tons silver in 2019, worth nearly rupees 230 billion rupees. With custom duty on a silver nitrate in India at 29.8%, it may be worthwhile to look at a large-scale synthetic production of a silver in India as a nanoparticles. With the right policy and a government support, India can be a supplier for a silver nitrate and other such lab chemical. Silver bhasma is an Ayurvedic medication preparation from silver that has been used in Ayurveda for the treatment of several conditions such as vertigo, polydipsia, and a loss of memory. It has been shown to exhibit its therapeutic benefit when consumed in a dose of 30 to 125 milligram per day. In Ayurveda, silver has been used in a form of a bhasma called a Rijab bhasma for 5,000 years. Ayurvedic medicine used silver in a small amount as a tonic elixir also. It was used to treat neurological disorder, respiratory tract disorder, muscular dystrophy, infertility, urinary tract disorder, and diabetes also. Silver has a historical and extensively been used as a broad spectrum antimicrobial agent. Silver leaf was used to combat infection in a wounded sustained by troops during World War I also. Silver has also been used for a water purification, that is told by my previous panelist also. In the early 1800, doctor used silver suture in surgical wound very successfully, and that was a time when Western scientists rediscovered that was known for 1,000 of years in Indian Ayurveda that silver is a powerful germ fighter. A study published in the Journal of Alternative Complementary Medicine in 2013 to review the efficacy of a colloidal silver as an antimicrobial agent concluded that colloidal silver was a broad spectrum antimicrobial agent, and the Indians are very sharp to take the benefit of the situation. So I can say it's an Indian Jugaad, an enterprising company in Puducherry has made a silver grid mask of a organic cotton fabric for protecting during a COVID-19 pandemic. Silver being used as an pathogenic, cleansing, and energizing agent. There is a vast use of the silver in the medicine field also. So I will say silver is for ever. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Mahesh Joshi. It was well captured. Thank you. I move over to Mr. Arul Shamagosundaram, who is the Chief Innovation and Business Collaboration, Tata Power. Tata Power has been one of the leaders in making solar panels in India through Tata Power Solar. What is the current ecosystem in India for manufacturing the targeted 8 gigawatt or 10 gigawatt of solar panels that we intend making? And what must India do at the industry level to increase the competitiveness and to bridge technology gap so that we not only cater to domestic requirements but also look at export opportunities? And what are the kinds of policy changes do you see, like, because there are several favorable policies for solar sectors, do you see something more, especially for encouraging silver-based manufacturing within India? Over to you, Mr. Arul.
Okay, thank you, Srivastav. And see, I think solar, obviously, you heard about photovoltaics being a big silver consumer. In fact, I was quite surprised looking at the data. Almost 8% of the silver that's manufactured globally is used in photovoltaics. And someone was talking about 90 million ounces of silver. That's about 30,000 tons, roughly 25 to 30,000 tons. That's being used in photovoltaics today. So when you look at the Indian ecosystem, currently we are manufacturing, where the silver is getting mostly used is in the cell manufacturing. And today the Indian ecosystem, there's about 2 gigawatts of cell manufacturing in India today. So I think the government has come up with several policies which is linked to a PPA linked manufacturing tender, on which about 3 gigawatts has been awarded. So I think that will automatically increase the capacity to close to 5 gigawatt. And I believe there are other players that have come into the picture who are not part of that particular tender, but are keen on setting up manufacturing. So I think there is a general recognition of having manufacturing in India. And I believe that is a driver in developing the manufacturing ecosystem here. And 8 to 10 gigawatt over the next 2-3 years is possible. And the government is certainly supporting it with the safeguard duties and basic custom duties so that domestic manufacturing is developed. The challenge in domestic manufacturing is the integrated supply chain. Of course, today we make cells and modules, but I think 97% of the wafers, I think, are made in China today. So you're still dependent on China for a core input to the cell manufacturing. So the wafer manufacturing has to come up here. And also the entire supply chain for the solar panel manufacturing, whether it's glass, whether it's backsheet, whether it is silver, whether it is... so all these have to be made in India as well. Bringing that entire supply chain into India is the next challenge as we move towards self-reliance or Atmanirbhar in manufacturing. In terms of the technology gap, the main challenge for us is it's not a technology gap. The technology is readily available. It's fairly commoditized. Yes, there is a rapid change in technology today from the multi-crystalline silicon panels to monocrystalline silicon panels, and the efficiencies of these panels. What was producing 4.5 watts a cell is now producing 5.3, 5.4. And over the next 4 or 5 years, it will go to 6 watts per panel. So, hello?
Sorry.
So the impact of silver usage is going to come down. Of course, see, today we are saying we did 100 million ounces of silver in photovoltaics last year, I believe, or 2017. So technically, we should be doing 3 times that, because from a global warming perspective and the conversion of fossil fuels to clean energy, we will need at least 3 times the manufacturing capacity. Up to 300, 350 gigawatt of manufacturing capacity will be required globally. So would that mean we're going to consume 350 million ounces of silver? Probably not. And the reason is because two or three drivers. One is the efficiency of the panel cells are increasing. The second is people are working constantly to reduce the extent of silver usage. So the projections are that maybe the silver usage on absolute terms may not increase significantly from the 100 million ounce levels over the next few years, but the volume of solar panels that will be manufactured may double or maybe even triple. Of course, in the triple scenario, I think there'll be a further 50% increase in the consumption. At least that's my projection. So now, silver paste. So in terms of technology, exports, the question is on exports. Yes, as I said, there's going to be a 350 gigawatt market globally. There is an opportunity overall to be in the solar manufacturing space, and there are a lot of export opportunities. I think given the +1 approach now most countries are taking, where they want China +1 manufacturing location, India definitely has an opportunity to export solar panels, manufacture and export beyond the domestic market. And just to meet the domestic demand, or to meet the commitments as per the roadmap the government has laid out, we need at least 20 gigawatt of panels every year. So our capacities should raise up to 20, not 10 gigawatt. So I think that hopefully that will happen over the next 4 to 5 years. In terms of policy changes, the government is supporting at the module level. At the supply chain level, I think we need to look at what is required to get the entire supply chain and do it in a way that is structured and transition slowly rather than an abrupt imposition on the input raw materials. As far as silver paid, there is certainly a fair amount of technology involved beyond the silver itself, because the size of the silver lines, because they're getting narrower and narrower, the viscosity, the conductivity, the additives that are added. I think there are a fair amount of technology involved in the silver paste, and there are a couple of manufacturers, 2 or 3 manufacturers globally who are making the silver paste, and certainly Vedanta can definitely become a major player in this space. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a very comprehensive coverage of what's happening and what needs to be done. Mr. Arul, stay back with us. If time permits, we will get back to you once again.
Sure.
We move on to Mr. Kishore Choksi. Mr. Sailesh Choksi couldn't make it because he's not well. Mr. Kishore Choksi is the director at the Choksi Hires. Sir, we would like to understand more about the silver paste that goes into solar PV, and India imports roughly about 4 tons of silver paste every month. What's stopping manufacturing of silver paste in India? Yes, there is some technology issue. Is it pricing or lack of stable market demand, or is it government policies? And if at all India, or if and when India chooses to manufacture, how attractive is Rajasthan as the place where it can be manufactured? Because we have the advantage of equipment manufacturers, the LBMA refinery in the form of Hindustan Zinc, and we also have a very, very large captive market. Mr. Kishore Choksi, we would like to understand from you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting.
Over to you, sir.
Thank you for inviting us to this panel. You can hear me, right?
Yes, sir. We
Yes.
can hear.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Just very brief introduction. We are an Indo-German joint venture which is working in Udaipur, Rajasthan for last 25 years. We refine industrial scraps and produce industrial products, mainly silver contacts. Coming to silver paste, we have been discussing this business with our partners Heraeus in Germany for quite some time now. Frankly, 4 tons per month is relatively a small quantity compared to 50 tons per month that Heraeus produces mainly in China and Singapore. Heraeus today is the world's largest silver paste producer, as far as I know. For now, they prefer to export this from Singapore instead of investing in India with us to produce it. The technology is available, but I guess it's the volume game. But in near future, with Make in India initiative, we could persuade Heraeus to rethink. But I guess they also want the government policies to be stable over longer period. Hindustan Zinc could play a role by partnering with us and providing silver at attractive terms, maybe, to make the project viable. Finally, when you talked about Rajasthan, so okay, silver will be available, but I don't believe we have panel manufacturers in Rajasthan. So that industry also needs to be brought into Rajasthan. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this crisp. Any reflection on, like, India probably becoming a manufacturer of solar panels for the world? Any reflection on that?
Well, I think you need to ask that question to Tata Power and people like them. But I believe with the growing demand, we have to make them here. Finally, more and more, and not depend on inputs from China.
It's very nicely put, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We'll move on to Professor Anand Khanna, former professor IIT Bombay. We did see him earlier in the video talking about nanoparticles. Professor, please make us understand briefly what is this nanoparticle and share some insights on what are the basic applications of the products which are relevant for India and how this can be manufactured in India. Do we have the entire technical know-how to manufacture and so on? Take us through this in a brief. Professor Anand Khanna, may I have you? Professor Khanna, please go ahead.
Okay. Nanoparticles are
We are facing issue with Professor Khanna's system. Just bear with us. Professor Khanna, we will come back to you. We'll go to the next speaker and then we will come back to you, sir. Please hold on. We'll just come back to you after discussing the issues with Mr. Ashish Choksi, Executive Vice President, Hindustan Platinum. Mr. Ashish, I would like to know, how do you see the market growing for silver contacts in electric and electronic applications, with manufacturing base expanding and shifting from China to India? What are the prospects and how is the industry gearing up for that? Over to you, Mr. Ashish Choksi.
Thank you, Shivat. So I'll try and answer that. In brief, the answer is yes. The Indian market should grow, but it needs a lot of support and a lot of events to take place to be able to see the kind of growth. Let me put it in perspective. China has 1.4 billion people. India is about 1.3 billion people. However, the electrical and electronic industry in China uses or consumes almost 2,000 tons of silver annually. In India, in the electrical market, we are at about 120 approximately tons per annum. So a lot of policy on electrification and the grids upgradation needs to be there. It has started to a certain extent with the smart cities rolling out. So there will be an upgradation of grids there, and so we should see some more contacts used in the smart cities. Another area where I feel that the policy needs to come in, of course, is for electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles, right? So there's a lot of silver being consumed in that section. Previous speakers have spoken about it as well. But the government needs to push that. I know they're trying and they're working on things, but if the EV comes in, we should see some good offtake of silver contacts over there as well. And another thing I think is currently, and it's probably a short term, hopefully a short term situation. The geopolitical situation between India and China is going to try and aid more and more people to buy from within India, which should grow the market. One other factor that I have seen, very recently is the U.S.-China trade wars. A lot of sanctions going in between the two countries, and with the pandemic also a lot of disruption in the supply chain, logistics, which has given a lot of thought to the industries making the breakers and all of them to move away from China. Of course, they are so dependent on China currently that they will slowly, wean away from China, hopefully, and come to a country like India. We are already seeing that happening from our European and American customers. But in India, unfortunately, we are a very, very price-sensitive country. So it will take a little more time for people once they move away from just the price issue. They will start moving towards India because we have the technology. I mean, we are a multinational with a multi-diverse, employee base. We have plants in both the US and here. Technology is available quite abundantly for all the contact materials that are needed. One other thing that we would hopefully see in the very near future is move away from the silver cadmium usage to a silver tin oxide and a silver zinc oxide usage. We're seeing that slowly, but not so much. So government policy push over here as well should help us, the manufacturers of the breakers will have to change the entire setup, and there will be a capex for them. But in the long run, for the environment, it would be, very much beneficial. So yeah, I see the industry growing. I see a lot of demand for the electrical contacts from India per se. So the usage of silver will continue to increase. But whether it happens just from within India or from outside India more so, we are personally seeing it at Hindustan Platinum from outside India. Like we are also good delivery status holders for silver, platinum and palladium as well, and that gives a lot of comfort to our partners in Europe and in the US. It's not as much appreciated in India, at least in the electrical contacts field. Of course, in the investment and bullion industry, certainly has a big say.
Thank you, Mr. Ashish. It's very interesting to note your thoughts on how to convert the short-term opportunity into a strategic advantage. It's been said very well put forward, and that could create opportunity both in the domestic market as well as in the export market. Thank you so much. We move back to Professor Anand Khanna. Professor, you are there. Please join us. Share us quickly your thoughts on the nano silver. Please go ahead. We will try for one last time, Professor Khanna. It was a slight digress just because we are having some technical issues. Professor Khanna, can you join us? Okay, I think unfortunately we are having some technical challenges, like in connecting with Professor Khanna. It's been a wonderful panel. Thanks first to Matt, because very early in the morning, it's around 4:30 there. He has got up and then he was ready and he shared an excellent perspective. And thanks to all the panelists, Mahesh Joshi ji, Mr. Arul, Mr. Kishore Choksi, and Mr. Ashish Choksi. Unfortunately, Professor Anand Khanna could not be made available because of technical challenges. Overall, very positive thoughts, what India needs to do, where the opportunity is, and how do we take it forward. Thank you so much. I thank all the panelists, and I also thank all those who have stayed back to take advantage of the words of wisdom from this extremely talented and well experienced panelists. Thank you so much.